Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're taking a look at the 2025 Trek Dual Sport 1 Gen 5. This is the least expensive of the latest Dual Sport in their lineup, and we'll go into the features and designs of this bike, as well as talk about what this bike does well, where you get some upgrades if you go up in the ladder, and we'll end it on exactly what it weighs. So if this is interesting to you, stick around and consider subscribing. Talking Trek Dual Sport. Now, the Dual Sport has 3 levels in the lineup, and this one is the Dual Sport 1. And essentially, what a Dual Sport is a hybrid that's really a mixture focused more on capability off-road than necessarily the same speed that, say, you would get if you were on their FX fitness style bike, which leans a little closer to, say, a road bike, whereas this Dual Sport leans a little closer to a mountain bike. And with that, in the 3 levels, you're essentially getting the same aluminum frame. So this here is what they called their Gold Alpha aluminum, which is shaped in butted tubing. It has internal cable routing. This particular one has a steel fork up front, but we'll get into that later. And all the Dual Sport models are disc brake only, meaning that they're really designed to have some of that additional braking capability of what you would get with a mountain bike. The other place that's kind of unique with these is all of the Dual Sports are going to rock the 650 by 50 millimeter wide tire. So a 50 millimeter wide tire is pretty wide. It's not quite mountain bike wide, but the wheel diameter being a 650B instead of, say, the 700C that you're most common on road bikes and hybrids means that the diameter of the wheel is a little bit lower, and because it's running these wide tires, the tire height is a little higher because tire height is a ratio of width. So in here, we're going to have a lot more cushion on the tire, some good grip when you're off-road, and that allows them to get rid of the front fork, where this bike is rocking a steel fork. And if you go up to their Dual Sport 2, that steel fork turns into aluminum, and a Dual Sport 3 would have that fork be made out of carbon fiber. And so that's part of what's changing between these bikes, is that the ethos of the bike is the same, but rather the components and the quality of the items that are attached to it, will those change as you go up in the line. Now, as I said before, this was internal cable routed, so you can see the cabling all coming in through that headset. That makes for a pretty clean connection, and in fact, these route reasonably well. Compared to, say, an externally routed bike, of course, not quite as easy, but much more slick, and it's going to keep the cables out of the way for when you're, say, putting this on a bike rack, say, locking it up outside of work, whatever you might be doing with the bike. And when it comes out, the cabling is coming out down underneath the bottom bracket. And then you can see here, you've got a cable going out back to this rear derailleur and to the brake. Now, in this case, this being a Dual Sport 1, we've got Shimano's Accessory 8-speed drivetrain. So this is the latest Accessory drivetrain. It goes through a 8-speed cassette and then goes up front to this 2x crankset. Now, on the higher level versions of the Dual Sport, it goes to a 1x up front, but here we still have a 2x with a Shimano Tourney front derailleur, so shifting low to high. So just 2 up front, 8 out back, so 16 total gears, but a pretty wide range. And so on the shifting setup, the right side is going to do your rear gears, the thumb button will put you to an easier gear, and then index finger will click you to a harder gear. On the left-hand side, well, that's going to operate the high and low. So larger the number, the higher the gear, the harder it is to pedal. Index finger will bring you back down. Now, you'll notice that those shifters, well, they're integrated in with the brake lever. So the brake lever here integrated together, and it's clamping down with a side pull mechanical disc brake on the front and the rear. Those side pull mechanicals are clamping on a 160 millimeter rotor. And then you'll notice both the front and the back of the bike utilize a quick release, but it's not your standard quick release. On the back, it is, But up front, what you'll see is that this is what's actually called a through skew. So the quick release goes through the bike just like a normal one would. And it's sort of a hybrid between that quick release, which allows less expensive replacement parts, a little bit ease of use, and a through axle. Because you'll see on the non-drive side, we've got a spot where you'd be using a 5mm Allen to take the through axle out. So that allows this to go through. You tighten it up with that 5mm Allen, and it makes putting the wheel in and out of the bike quite a bit easier, and always locating the brake. Past that, the positioning on a Trek Dual Sport is more upright than, say, what you'd get on a fitness bike, but not quite as upright as their comfort hybrids, the Verve. So up front, we're going to have our handlebars raised up in a comfortable position. The Dual Sport 1 is running a steel handlebar with a slight rise. You can see it kind of comes up a little bit, and that's going to give you a nice positioning and these fairly standard rubber Bontrager grips. When you move up in the range, the handlebar would change to aluminum. The DS3 Dual Sport 3, for instance, will have some additional padding in the grip as well. And then looking out back is Bontrager saddle, which has some nice foam to it, and then a 27.2 aluminum seat post going into the frame. This bike will rock quite a bit as far as carrying capacity is concerned. In fact, on the underside of our top tube here, there's 1, 2, and 3 mounts to be able to run a frame bag inside of the bike. And then out back, we're going to have spots to be able to rock a rack off of the back. And a favorite for me is it does have a mount for a cafe style lock. So pretty neat. You can get a lock that wraps around the wheel, kind of locks it up. It's not going to keep the bike obviously from being able to be picked up and stolen from you. But what it does do is it allows you to lock up the bike quickly when you get somewhere and all you're worried about is just running in and coming out. Now, last things to mention on Dual Sport 1, the tires, these GR0 Elite tires, hybrid sort of setup with a little bit of grip on the sides, of course, with that large 50mm size we were talking about, but not tubeless ready, and uniquely the only one in Trek's Dual Sport lineup that runs a traditional Schrader valve. So most of the other ones are going to run a Presta valve. This has a traditional Schrader, which is like what you would get, say, on your car tire. So pretty simple if you're going to fill up using one of those electric compressors or going down to your gas station. Well, anyways, now that we've taken a look at the 2025 Trek Dual Sport 1 Gen 5, let's find out what this weighs. And the actual weight of the Trek Dual Sport 1 Gen 5 size medium comes in and weighs 31.46 pounds. Go ahead and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And while you're at it, please hit subscribe and browse the channel to see more videos like this to check out as well.